Welcome to this stateless code video. In this video, we're going to take a look at using dev containers for Ruby on Rails development. So Ruby on Rails 8 has been released, and the guides for it have been updated. I might dig into that and do a series on that, and I did a full series going through Rails 7 with the Getting Started guide. But for the purposes of this, we're going to take a look. The guides here have a section on getting started with Rails, and then referenced in that, and then as its own standalone item is installing Ruby on Rails. And there are a couple different ways that you can go about it. I have a video where I start with a kind of new Ubuntu 24.04 installation, and you install kind of all of the dependencies and Ruby. In that video I used RVM. The guide here recommends using Mies, which is a similar type of version manager. Mies works for Node and Ruby and Python and a bunch of other ones. But anyway, I'll put the description to kind of going through the steps of installing Ruby and Rails and on a Ubuntu 24.04 environment in this. If you don't want to go through all of the hassle of that setup, or let's say you're a Windows user or a Mac user and just want to kind of develop without going through kind of native setup as you would on that video with the Windows subsystem for Linux and Windows, or Homebrew for Mac, you can just use this method to kind of install your and develop on your app using dev containers. Dev containers use Docker images to kind of give you an isolated sandbox for development. It allows you to not have to worry if you've got multiple projects running on the same language that have different versions and stuff like that. A lot of things like RVM and Mies will kind of take you through that. I'll click onto the development containers here. So the idea is you still use a native editor, like VS Code is the primary kind of editor that's used for these dev containers types of things, and that's what we'll use in this video. I have a separate video on installing VS Code, which I'll link to in the description of this video. And there are trade-offs. So in this example, I don't use dev containers for my development. This machine that I'm developing on has Ubuntu and Windows dual booted on it, and the Ubuntu partition is only like 70 gigabytes. So storage of these Docker images becomes much larger than if you just have a project with kind of your just your source code in a folder, as opposed to a whole independent image that essentially installs an operating system. So kind of that trade-off of isolation and sandboxing versus kind of storage, and I would say a negligible amount of speed potentially. So from here, you can, it encourages you in the first paragraph, you can check out the Getting Started with Dev Containers guide to learn more, and that's what we'll do. So we start here. It gives kind of an overview with that link to dev containers, and it kind of says you can go the other direction in the Getting Started guides. The first thing you need to do is have Docker installed. So this is so variant on systems that for now at least I'm going to, similar to what the Rails guide does here, refer you to the Docker installation here. I've already got Docker installed on this machine, so we're going to kind of skip that step. If you don't have it done, then you can kind of follow the instructions. It has install Docker Desktop for Mac, Windows, Linux. You kind of follow your path, choose your own adventure there. One thing to note is Docker Desktop, if you go that route, does have a, let me see here, commercial use of it if you've got more than 250 employees or 10 million in revenue. You need a paid subscription. Otherwise, all of these tools are free and for your use. So that being here, the next thing that we're going to go and do is install the Rails new binary. So Rails new is a kind of convenience tool for setting up a development container for a new Ruby on Rails app. You'll notice, and we'll point it out, it's Rails -new as opposed to Rails space new. So like if you've got, in our case, I've got Rails on my installed on my host computer here, and if I did Rails space new, it would create a Rails app kind of on a directory in my file system using that version of Rails that I have when I do that. I'll kind of show the difference here. So locally, I have installed Rails 8.0.1, and if I do Rails space new, it'll start installing that. We'll leave it in the background while we keep looking at Rails -new. So what you need to do here is you're going to take one of the installation node here is you're going to find one of the latest release, and you're going to match the tar.gzip file against your operating system. So we're going to look at releases here, and we've got the most recent version of this, and then if you look at assets, it will give you the different versions of the binaries for this. So in this case, note like if you've got a Silicon Mac, then you've got the AA Arch 64 one. If you've got an Intel Mac, you do this one, and we are looking for x86-64 Linux. So we'll download that. I'll just unzip it in my downloads directory, which I've got here. So we'll copy to my local.bin directory, which is in my path. If you wanted to make it universally accessible, you could go to like slash like that or something like that. But in this case, I'm only caring about it for this user. So actually, I'll just move it. I don't need to. So now I should be the local version of Rails that I have installed on my local machine is working here. And if I do bin dev, it will show my information on localhost 3000. You can see Rails 8.0.1, Ruby 3.4.1, and that is kind of locally what we've got. I'll shut this down. And now we're going to use the Rails new command. Get back to our example here. Rails new store -- dev container, and I'm going to add a couple of command line options to this, and I'll show you why. So if we go into the source code, and this is written in Rust, so if you're just a Ruby person, I guess brace yourself. We're going to go Rails new here, and we can see the defaults here are Ruby 3.3.4 and Rails 7.2.0, which neither one of those, especially if you're trying to do the getting started with guide here for Rails 8, you'll kind of go through this. You'll do Rails new store -- dev container. You'll do all this, go through all this work, get your container built, started, and then it will kind of on that splash page, it will say Ruby on Rails 7.2.2. So like you want to do Rails 8 and you've installed 7.2.2 and you've got to start over. So we're going to use here now the Rails new command. And again, note that it's Rails -new. Let me get back to the top here so that I don't run into my camera on the lower right hand corner. So dev container, and we're going to go -u is your Ruby version, and -r is your Rails version. And we'll hit enter. And this will go through the process of kind of building that container. If you didn't have Docker installed, this would fail. If you are on a Mac, it notes in the README here for Rails new that you need to go into system settings and then privacy and security, and then like after you launch it, it'll reject it the first time. You need to go in and then hit allow anyway, and then you'll have to authenticate as an admin again when you go to launch it. Did you not take my... I just saw framework defaults for 7.2. Oh, it got removed though, so we'll see. We'll pause and let this finish, and then we'll continue on. And we have an error. So this errored out when it was trying to do some of the installs, and if you scroll up higher, you can see this did Ruby 3.3.4 and 7.2.0, so the exact thing I warned you about wound up happening. And it's the... I'm looking at this GitHub issue on Rails new. It was... I put the Ruby version and Rails version arguments after the store and dev container arguments, so that caused it to not work. So we're going to do where's the name of that image? Just Docker, we'll hit clear here so it's back up at the top. Docker image list. We will call Docker RMI force on that image, and then we'll try it again and see if we are successful. So, oh, and I also need to remove the whole directory. So, let's see here. All right. So those are gone, and we'll try this. Oh. I hit Control Shift C instead of Control C. Oh, what? Just all right. Those are picking up. Yeah. What happened here? Okay. Start again. I just want this command. There we go. Looked correct. We'll call store dev C. Try it again. Looks like we've got, you can see here, Rails 3.4.1 and or Ruby 3.4.1, Rails 8.0.1. We'll pause and let this finish. All right, so everything appears to have succeeded. We do have our images named with Rails 8. Yeah, it's got Rails 8, Ruby 3.4, which is what we want. And then what it did, it also wrote the new app to my local directory. So that's store dev C that we just did. You can go there. You can see, well, go a little bit less here. It's kind of the normal things that you have here, other than you've got a dev container file or dev container hidden directory with a compose dev container and Docker file. So what we're going to do now is we're going to, with VS Code, we'll clear to get back up higher. Going to open VS Code with this directory. And it will detect, let me make sure it's out from the camera. Folder contains dev container configuration. Reopen this folder to develop in a container, which is what we're going to do. We'll click reopen in container. See if off of that. So it's connecting to the dev container. I'll pause and let it finish doing that. We'll get going from there. So I mentioned earlier in the video that there's a trade-off as it relates to space, and I kind of hit the day of reckoning in terms of that space trade-off. So as it was trying to spin up the dev container, it hit the error no space left on drive. So I'm going to hit retry and do some housekeeping. We'll be back in a moment. All right, I freed enough space for this to succeed. So you can see down here in the lower corner, it shows the dev container store dev, and then here press any key to close the terminal. If we go here, we can see we'll do a new name here. This is 6.8.051 locally. Of course. Let's see if the versions are different. They are not. So that won't tell us anything. Let me obviously this matches my system right now, so this won't tell you anything. Well, it might. That plus prism. No, that's also there on mine. Let's see what happens if we do a bin dev. I can say it's application running on port 3000 is available. If we go to here, this is probably all going to be the same as what we had before locally. Oh, but it does have that YJIT plus prism there, so it is slightly different than our other situation. We are running on the dev container, so we will hit Control C to stop that, and we are good to go. In addition to doing your local dev, as it's noted in the, let's see here, opening the story application, and that was pretty much it on the item here. But Rails itself also has a .dev container item here, and if you go to the Rails guides on contributing to Ruby on Rails, and go down to contributing to code. It recommends using GitHub code spaces, VS Code, dev containers, CLI, that sort of thing. So we'll also use this sort of technique. I found something I can contribute to Rails. I'll create some videos. I have a playlist on my contributions to Rails, which I've made 2 of them so far. They've all been related to Rails generators. This one is also going to be related to a Rails generator, but that should be coming down the pike. Thanks for watching. You can take a look at the other stateless code videos. I've got a lot of stuff on Ruby and Rails. I went through the whole Rails getting started guide with Rails 7. A lot of that's still going to be applicable for Rails 8, and hopefully now that you've got kind of seen me stumble through a couple of the gutches, you'll be able to develop on Rails 8 using dev containers on your own computer. Thanks for watching, and be on the lookout for more videos coming from Stateless Code.
Want to create your own Ruby gem but don't know where to start? Code along with me on the end-to-end journey of the Nerd Dice project. We'll configure and publish the gem, use GitHub Actions to trigger builds and tests, and create magic methods with Ruby metaprogramming that can roll any number of dice, all while using a test-driven approach. Go to statelesscode.com/nerddicegem to level up.
Testing. Welcome. Some house cleaning in terms of storage, and then fire alarm. Thanks for watching this Stateless Code video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and spread the word. Check out our growing library of videos on our social media channels. Follow us at Stateless Code, and Taxation is Theft.